So I think one of the things that we were going to focus in on this morning was that idea of dopamine and how we
Yeah.
can really use that to shore up a lot of the things that we're trying to do in terms of like our daily routines, our schedules, and really sort of being consistent in our approaches as parenting, which I know is some of the things that were mentioned in the questions. And obviously, dopamine is, that neurotransmitter that provides us with that reward feeling, that feel good feeling when we achieve a task. And because our ADHD brain often doesn't, you know, either process it correctly or have enough to start with, the research is still a little bit unsure there. But the end result is we're not getting that same dopamine feeling that perhaps a neurotypical person would. So, being able to really implement dopamine in a strategic way into our day can help us to be more successful when we're trying to implement strategies for ourselves that will help, with our parenting more generally. So, I wanted to share, I suppose, a bit of an example of how that might work and how it's helped me in my own parenting. So, something that we tried to implement, a while back with my sons was the idea of a bit of a chore chart. So that it was really more around the idea of the value of money because it's tap, tap, tap today, and you really had no concept of cash and where money came from. They just thought mum tapped everything, and this is getting a bit of a worry for me. I'm like, no, they need to understand money. So we, set some really simple things for them to do throughout the day, and they got ticks on their chore chart at the end of each day, and then a payday, each week. So the problem was, I'd set it all up beautifully, of course, with my ADHD brain. I had a great chart and all those things, but
We love our charts initially.
I just wasn't being consistent in the implementation. I didn't feel like doing it, or I'd forget, or, it just seemed like a big thing to put into my day each day, sort of, consistently following through with the chart. And what I had to look at was, how dopamine was relating to that as one of the big factors. So, one of the things was it wasn't a task that was really that enjoyable, standing there sort of ticking off the things from the day. And also, more generally, the days that perhaps I'd not had enough dopamine myself, I was feeling quite sort of, demotivated by the end of the day generally. So this then became an extra task that I had to put into my routine. So some of the strategies that we really implemented around that were one, shoring up my own daily routine to make sure even on those hard days I was still getting regular dopamine sources throughout my daily schedule. But then, more specifically, when it came to the chore chart, it was really looking at ways to make that a task that was more fun. So I looked at the time that I was doing it, and it was right around bedtime, which, as we know, is a bit of a tough time anyway. So I brought the time forward. So rather than doing it sort of the night before, we were doing it in the morning, which for us, because I work from home, isn't as stressful. I know that's not the case for everyone if you've got to get out the door. So finding a time in the day that sort of was more likely to be successful was an important part. And then we looked at actually just making it more fun for me. So a lot of the time we think about how we make things fun for our kids, but we looked at how can I make it actually more enjoyable for me. So that involved, for me, buying some really nice whiteboard markers that I like using, and just simple little things that just made it a more pleasurable experience.